Hamza Yusuf has the best statement that I heard on this issue of activism. We've just got too much activism, too much movement. We just need some silence.
Alhamdulillah.
We just need to stop moving so much.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, that's one of his best statements.
In recent times, there have been different scholars who've made different statements, things that have shocked people. And not just, because everyone knows we're talking about Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, not just Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, even from our own kind of schools of thought. For the laity, what should they do? Because we know these people, we've been listening to them for a long time, we've taken knowledge from them. Something like this happens, do you call it? It's sometimes quite difficult for the laity for us in how to respond to it, you know?
Listen, there's a number of things I want to say about this. And I haven't written about it because I just think, first of all, it's interesting you said, listen, everybody knows this name of the person. I really don't understand this misapplication of let's not name names.
Yeah.
You know, when everybody knows you're talking about, what's this, just this fake nonsense, this application of the hadith of the Prophet, you know, that the Prophet said, what's wrong with their people? That's because no one knew who the people were. So there was no need to bring their, you know, they were there. And I don't want to pick you out in the audience. And so I'm going to say, what's up with the people? So they get the message clearly. And they're thinking there might be another person who did this as well. So they don't feel it bad. But when the whole world knows who's been talking about, you go, well, there's, you know, this been happening.
Yeah, right? But it's still not good manners, isn't it?
No, it's not good manners at all. It's complete nonsense. And it's just misguiding people. It's just confusing people who don't know what's happening. So,
but that's good then if they don't know. That means they don't know who it is.
No, they know what's happening, but they don't know why he's not mentioning it. That's what goes on.
It's no. So I disagree heavily with that unless there is a defined benefit in not doing it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Secondly,
the benefit is just the generally playing the ball, not the man, isn't it?
That's fine when it's not happening at that moment. When you're teaching an issue, when you're talking about a subject, but when it's happening live right now and everybody's talking about it and you start to try and pretend that you're playing the ball. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So that's just that fakeness and that irritates people. So, you know, if you're going to, you know, speak about this person, just name the person, that's it. The second thing I'll say is that when it comes to the Muslim public, one of the problems is that, unfortunately, and I shouldn't be saying this because I'm one who benefits from this immensely, is that they are far too generous with their love. Far too generous. And unfortunately, what's worse is that Muslim leaders and scholars are enjoying that and reveling in that and benefiting from that far too much. And they're even taking advantage of. And we've already heard about those who take advantage to a level where criminal activities and, you know, all the sexual scandals and all that nonsense, and those people get called out and they're condemned, and rightly so. But I mean, and also, you know, those that have cults and then they do shirk and all that rest of it, and, you know, they get condemned and they're, maybe they get away with it in this dunya, but they're in the akhirah, rightly so. But what about us lapping up all of that and enjoying undivided loyalty, completely, you know, absolute love and respect, so that they ignore absolutely everything that you say mistaken, and that's obviously weakness. What about the fact that it allows those people then to continue to believe that they are so rightly guided? So there's a fundamental problem with the people. It also reduces the quality of everything. Like, you know, we spoke about khutbahs, right? What if people started saying, you know, I will refuse to sit and listen to this dross. I refuse to go on this trip. I've now paid 5,000, 10,000 pounds to come on Hajj with you, and you come out and you give one lecture on this day and one lecture on that day. Are you kidding me? They paid this, you know. What happened to the person going there and, you know, and really looking after these people, and instead of being served by them? And our Muslim leaders need to take a lesson and understand, as Isa alayhi salam, when someone tried to take his bag and carry his bag, his provisions, and Islam took it back. And he said that Allah sent me to serve the people, not to be served. And the ulama and the du'at and the guides and the whatever, they need to understand that when people put you in a position as a trust, either because of a guide in a group or a project or a class or whatever, that you are their public servant, not just because you have some knowledge and you're giving it a big one. So that's another problem, that the Muslims themselves have become so generous in their love that they're not seeing clearly what the Prophet ﷺ warned against, which is why we have Allahumma arni al-haqqa haqqa wa rizqni ittiba'a. Oh Allah, show me the truth to be absolutely true so I can see it and follow it. So that's another problem. The third is that our overreaction. Okay, Hamza Yusuf has become, honestly, whatever he said, he's become a scapegoat. He really has. Of course, what he said is absurd, and we know that. but people put the ill of the world upon him. And this is not the way of Ahl Sunnah.
Some people are actually happy that they get to attack someone because they dislike him.
Because
from
these are
before,
people themselves who have their own inferiority complex. Because it's like Man United fans. Okay? Their only source of joy is the downfall of everybody else. You know what I'm trying to say? That shows how pathetic Man United fans have become. Instead of saying then we've got to go and try and win everything again, we get excited if Liverpool lose. What the fish is that? Where's the honor in that? What kind of person is that? I mean, just as a sports fan and at the human level, if your success and your mood is developed and is happy because someone else suffers, this is not Islamic.
Yeah.
You should be wanting him to be guided and to apologize and to say the right things, as opposed to see him get cast and get cussed again and written against and whatever our differences with him. So he's done so much good, and he's going to be now judged upon a couple of mistakes that he makes here and there. And that's not the right way of dealing with it. As for what he said himself, this is the irony. The irony, of course, is that there's 2 points to this. Technically, what he said is the absolute Quran and Sunnah. Technically speaking, mujarrad yani of context, right? Just the text.
Devoid of any context.
Devoid of any context. What he has stated is the Sunnah. You don't challenge authority if you do not have the ability to challenge authority, because then the consequence is always going to be a disaster. And that has exactly what happened in Syria and in Iraq and X and Y. So without the context. Adding the context, we know that he's wrong, because it is allowed to put aside the hadith that if من رأى منكم المنكر فليغيره بيده فإن لم يستطع. So the hadith makes it clear that when you see an evil, then change it with your hand. And if that person is unable to, then with his tongue. And if that person is unable to, then with his heart, and that's the weakest of iman. What does if he is unable to mean? If he is unable to, of course he's able to. He just has to go and do it. It's not like someone's holding his hands.
Yeah.
It's not like someone's holding his tongue. So what does it mean if he is unable to? It means that the consequences of doing it are something severe. Not that he physically can't do it, because he's able to do it every single time.
It will make things worse.
So it's just making things worse. So there's no doubt that this principle is clear, that we shouldn't. But this hadith is put to the side when you've been attacked, your family's been attacked, when the deen has been attacked, and there is now, the red line has been crossed. So when the red line is crossed, then you don't side on the side of the oppressors. You are with the oppressed, whatever the hadith say. Then it's all in. We are all in.
And it's not like you're putting the hadith to the side or anything. You're just saying it's not applicable here.
It's not applicable. That is the context. And that's the mistake that he made. Now, what I'm saying, therefore, then, that the 2 points to make about what he said is that, in actual fact, technically he's right.
In theory.
But the context makes him wrong, and his associations of today make him wrong. He has made the choice to cozy up with the Emirates, whether that's for what he perceives as maslahah or not, Allah knows best, okay? Because they are criminals, okay? And once you do that, then your statements are going to be judged in the light of the context that you are bringing to the conversation. So his teachers, his people, his jama'ah are the ones that are supporting a very clear despotic regime against another, against movements, against, and I'm not saying that the Turks are on the haqq, and I'm saying that the Saudis are completely on batil, and there is lots of complex stuff going on.
Moving parts,
there's a lot, don't think that Qatar is completely innocent in this, don't think that Tayyip Erdogan is the Amir al-Mu'mineen. This is also sheer naivety too. However, once you've made that decision to go and then speak positively as well, because listen, we are also politically, we know that you need to have some nous, and we will be diplomatic and pragmatic as well in our fatwa and in our advice to scholars and in our advice to leaders. Now social media has catapulted scholars and du'at into the position now where now leaders and MPs and parliamentarians see them as important. So they speak to them. This week I've been in conversation with at least a couple of MPs who are really interested in what I want to say. They don't do that because they care who I am.
Members of Parliament, not Northerners, MPs. Those,
no,
the other sort.
Members of Parliament, they've got a lot of parties. They've got a lot of time on their hands now.
But it's not because they care who I am or whatever, but they think that I have influence, they think I have something to offer. And so in this situation, the fitna or the pressure upon the scholars has become greater. So your principles need to become even more clearer.
Isn't that better though than
it's
the
better
scholars
if
being
you,
the ones?
it's better if you deal with it properly. So if you are now going to go and speak to them or give them advice, there's a big difference being put in that position and telling them that what they're doing is good and supporting them, whatever, when that's completely wrong, and just being silent and saying, I was too weak. or I couldn't find the courage to say what I was going to say, and then not promote them. There's a big difference between them. So if a person claims that it's the political pressure forced me, I had to do it, whatever, then the answer is no, sorry. You could just refuse to be that person, refuse to be in that association, refuse to take the funding, refuse the association or combination or the partnership or the sponsorship. I could just refuse it and not make an affirmative statement either here nor there. And that is what is required, as opposed to taking a position. You're not forced to take a position.
So this is the point I'm coming to. So for the laity now, because I think the ulama, the scholars yourselves, you have a role in dealing with, for example, Sheikh Hamza. The average person, what do they do? Because what we know of him is good, and now he's done something that we know is madness, what he's saying. Is it hard for us to then speak out?
Does everyone have to air their opinion?
Yeah. No, not even air their opinion. But because of our support for Syria now, we feel we've got to say something or make a stance of some sort. You know, you feel like you've got to make a stance.
No one needs to make a stance. Well, I mean, who's in confusion over the state in Syria? Why are people so upset? Because it's so clear what's happening in Syria. So actually what Hamza Yusuf said, it should have just gone in the ears of one person and straight out the other.
But it does strike a chord with some people though. I mean, these arguments do exist.
It strikes an emotional chord with those folks who do not understand Sharia. Agreed. So if there are people who are confused, then we remind them that they should be establishing a methodology that has been there from day one, that you have a teacher, and that teacher is someone who guides you, but they're not the be all and end all. And you always must study with other teachers as well, because it's only through studying with other teachers that you know the reality of your own teacher. Yeah. This is a principle that the Salaf used to teach. Good. And the idea that one person only has one kind of school or one kind of idea, this is a disaster. Folks say that, you know what, AE is multidimensional. It's the flash way of saying that I've got teachers from all of the thing. That's the crazy thing. I'm celebrated because I had Sufi teachers, Salafi teachers. I'm celebrated because I've studied fiqh from all the madhahib. That's the basic requirement. For a teacher today, that's the basic requirement. Our standards are so low for our scholars and our du'at and our public personalities who are speaking, so low that someone who does the basic requirements is more multidimensional, this, that, relevant. All-rounder, this, that, whatever. And so, no, nothing changes. Hamza Yusuf, his good is taken and his bad is avoided. That's what should be happening all the time. But because people don't study, because people don't have teachers, and they have this completely higgledy-piggledy approach to knowledge, better things there, whatever resonates with their emotions, whatever resonates with their cultural background, taking bits and pieces, well, of course they're going to be in confusion. Unscripted.